Hi, good morning, everybody. So now, my dear students, we will read about the Monroe system and the ruling the countryside. Okay, in earlier we have discussed about the Diwani system. We have read about the permanent settlement and the problem that were being faced by the peasants and the farmers. Uh, and the Britishers of the economic crisis and how they tried to get up of the economic crisis. Okay, so now let's start. So, beta, after the permanent settlement and the problems that were being faced by the peasants and the Britishers, a new system came into being, and let's read about that particular system. Okay, so a new system is devised. By the early 19th century, many of the company officials were conceived that the system of revenue had to be changed again. How could revenue be fixed permanently at a time when the company needed more money to meet its expensive of administration and trade? So, beta, by the early 19th century, like that, in the process of the permanent settlement, all the peasants and farmers have to pay a permanent amount of money to the Britishers, but that was not satisfying their needs as they require lots of money and wealth to govern the nation and to run their administration and trade all over the country. Okay, so now what they did, they thought that the process of the permanent settlement was not up to the mark, and there should be another way to collect the amount of money, as with the harvesting time the crops were grown in a good quality and the peasants get good amount of price, so the revenue can be collected in a high way. Okay, और उनसे ज़्यादा और भी ज़्यादा पैसा लिया जा सकता था. Okay, but the permanent settlement says that there should never be increase in the amount of money. So the British officials thought that it is not working well, so there should be a new system. Okay, so as we all know that the agriculture was mainly in the northern side of our country, not in the southern side. So because all the main rivers and the good quality of fertile soil was available in the northern region only. Okay, so in the northern western provinces of the West Bengal presidency, most of the areas is now in the Uttar Pradesh. An Englishman called Holt McConaughey devised the new system which came into effect in 1822. He felt that the village was an important social institution in North Indian society and needed to be preserved. Under his direction, collectors went from village to village, inspecting the land, measuring the fields, and recording the customs and right of the different groups. The estimated revenue of each plot within a village was added up to calculate the revenue that each village mahal had to pay. This demand of collecting the revenue and paying it to the company was given to the village headman rather than the zamindar. This system came to be known as the Malwadi settlement. Okay, now my dear, as we all know that the northern part of the Bengal, and especially today that part is called as the Uttar Pradesh, and we all know that Uttar Pradesh is really very much famous for its agriculture of rice, wheat and sugarcane. Okay, so at that period of time in the early 19th century also, it was giving good amount of crops for the country. Okay, so now that the English people thought to revise their system, and a Englishman called Holt McConaughey devised a new system which came into effect in 1822. Okay, so he thought that the agriculture was mainly practiced in the villages, so the British Empire should focus its main aims and goals to improve the quality of trade and administration into the respect of keeping good thoughts for the social and welfare economic life of the farmers that are living in the villages. Okay, so like what they did, they went from village to village and meet several of farmers, several of peasants. They sow their land, they inspect their lands, they measure their fields and records the custom and rights of the different group. उन्होंने वहाँ पे जो लोग रह रहे थे उनसे बातें की, उनके विचारों को जाना समझा. ओके, एंड after that what they did, they thought that the estimated revenue of each plot within the village was added up to calculate the revenue that each mahal had to pay. Okay, and at that period of time beta mahal was recognized as a village. Okay, in the early 19th century mahal was recognized as a village. Okay, mahal was in the British revenue records. Mahal is a revenue estate which may be a village or a group of village. ओके, ब्रिटिश शासनकाल में महल एक गांव भी हो सकता था या फिर एक ग्रुप ऑफ विलेजेस, एक गांव का समूह भी हो सकता था जहां से रेवेन्यू कलेक्ट किया जाता था. ओके, सो एंड वो रेवेन्यू कलेक्ट करने की अथॉरिटी इस बार जमींदार को ना देके किसको दी गई, उस गांव के हेडमैन को दी गई. लाइक टुडे वी हैव सरपंच इन द विलेजेस. सो एट दैट पीरियड ऑफ टाइम द विलेज हेडमैन वाज गिवन द अथॉरिटी टू कलेक्ट द रेवेन्यू एंड आफ्टर कलेक्टिंग द रेवेन्यू पे इट टू द ब्रिटिश कंपनी इंस्टेड ऑफ गिविंग to the zamindar. And later on this system was to be recognized as the Malwadi settlement. Okay, and the Malwadi settlement was started in 1822 in Uttar Pradesh by the Englishman called Holt McCagnis. Okay, now let's read about the Monroe system. Okay, the Monroe system. In the British territories in the south, there was a similar move away from the idea of permanent settlement. The new system that was devised came to be known as the Rotor or Roitwari. It was tried on a small scale by the Captain Alexander Red in some of the areas that were taken over by the company after the wars with the Tipu Sultan, subsequently developed by the Thomas Monroe. This system was gradually extended all over the South India. So now, as in the southern part of our country, the British army thought that as the culture was going on in the northwestern part of the Bengal in Uttar Pradesh, the same tradition could also be followed in the southern part of our country. So what they did at that period of time, the Governor General was Thomas Monroe, and he thought that the land should be extended, the field should be measured, and they should talk with the peasants and farmers who were involved in the agriculture sector, like they give the land to them which was occupied after the wars with the Tipu Sultan. जब ब्रिटिश इंडियन आर्मी जब when the British East India Company fought war with the Tipu Sultan, and after that Tipu Sultan got defeated and killed in the war, they captured his land and property. And so what they did, the land they give to the farmer in the south to practice agriculture and to grow crops, as they will grow the crops, and with the good amount of soil, good quality of water, they will produce a good quality of crops, so that they can be sold in the markets and a good amount of revenue can be collected from the peasants. Okay, now Red and Monroe felt that in the south there were no traditional zamindars. The settlement, they argued, had to be made directly with the cultivator royals who had tilled the land for generations. Their field had to be carefully and separately surveyed before the revenue assessment was made. So at that period of time beta, in the southern part there were no nawabs, there were no zamindars, only the local farmers were there. And at that period of time the local farmers and cultivators were called as the royals. What they were called? They were called as the royals. Okay, so now they talked with the royals, they saw their fields and they saw their land and carefully examined them, so before the revenue assessment was made. Okay, now Monroe thought that the British should act as paternal father figures, protecting the royals under their change. Okay, so now my dear students, what they did, they really did a good thing for the farmers. They give the separate land to them, and they measure their fields so that they can crops a good amount of the good amount of crops, and later on they act as their paternal fathers for figures for the protecting the rights under their charge, कि भाई उनकी देखभाल के लिए, उनकी रक्षा के लिए, कि ताकि वो उनके लिए अच्छी फसलें उगाएं, अच्छी क्रॉप्स उगाएं, और उनके लिए वो देखभाल करते थे और फिर उनसे अच्छी अमाउंट पे वो खरीदते भी थे. ओके, Okay, so like what they thought, their main aim and goal was to make the farmers and peasants rich, and they could win their trust and heart so that they can take them into their own confidence by giving their land and by giving their fields. Okay, but all was not well. So within a few years after the new system were imposed, it was clear that all was not well with them. Driven by the desire to increase the income from land, revenue official fixed to higher revenue demands. Peasants were unable to pay. Riots flooded the countryside and villages became deserted in many regions. Optimistic officials had imagined that the new system could transfer the peasants into rich enterprising farmers, but this did not happen. Okay, so what they did after a small period of time, after 2 to 3 years, like when they started growing agriculture and they practiced crops, so all the things were going well, but suddenly they increased the amount of revenue and increased the tax on the peasants and farmers, which they were unable to pay. So they fled the countryside and all the villages became desert. like वो गांव के गांव खाली हो गए बेटा, और वो वहां से छोड़ के कहीं दूसरी ओर चले गए. बट और ये बिल्कुल भी ठीक नहीं हुआ, बिकॉज अंग्रेजों ने क्या सोचा था कि अगर उनके पास पैसा आएगा तो अंग्रेज भी अमीर हो जाएंगे और जो किसान है वो भी अमीर हो जाएंगे, बट ऐसा नहीं हुआ. ओके, so now we will read about the crops for Europe. The British also realized that the countryside could not only yield revenue, it could also grow the crops that Europe required. By the late 18th century, the company was trying its best to expand the cultivation of opium and indigo. In the century and a half that followed, the British pursued or forced cultivators in various parts of India to produce other crops. Jute in Bengal, tea in Assam, sugarcane in the United Provinces, now Uttar Pradesh, wheat in Punjab, cotton in Maharashtra, and Punjab, rice in Madras. Okay, so now as we all know that Europe is a big continent, and there were lots of population living in the 19th century. So the British thought that India is a good amount of a place where they can collect a good amount of agriculture and crops, and they can export them into their nation and can fulfill the demands of grain in their own country. So what they did, they started talking with the peasants and farmers at different places in our country and ordered them to grow sugarcane, rice, wheat, cotton, tea in the different parts of the country, so that they can get good amount of all these crops and they can send into their own country. Okay, so now what they did, see, tea was grown in Assam, jute in Bengal, and sugarcane in UP, wheat in Punjab, and cotton in Maharashtra, and Punjab, rice in the Madras. Okay, so like that, all they had distributed the crops among the different provinces, so that according to the land the crop was given. Like in Maharashtra there was black soil and cotton is grown on the black soil. Okay, and like in Uttar Pradesh, sugarcane is grown, tea in Assam, jute in Bengal, and rice in Madras. Okay, so like they were given different crops to grow. How was this done? The British used a variety of method to expand the cultivation of crop that they needed. Let us take a closer look at the story of one such crop, one such method of production. और ये सब कैसे हुआ कि अंग्रेजों ने how they divided the crops, how they measured the lands, how they inspected that whether this land is fit for this particular crop or not. So let us take a story. Okay, so does color have a history? Figure 5 and 6 are two. See, these are the figure 5 and 6. Figure 5, a calligraphy print in the 20th century in India, and figure 6, a Morris cotton print late 19th century in England. Okay, these were some of the good designs by the fine cotton and jute that were being produced in our country, and they were sent to the Europe. Okay, dear. Images of cotton prints. The image on the left, figure 5, shows a calligraphy print created by weavers of Andhra Pradesh in India On the right is a flora cotton print designed and produced by William Morris, a famous poet and artist of the 19th century Britain. There is one thing common in the two prints. Both use a rich blue color commonly called indigo. Do you know how this color was produced? The blue that you see in these prints was produced from a plant called indigo. It is likely that the blue dye used in the Morris prints in the 19th century British was manufactured from indigo plants cultivated in India. For India was the biggest supplier of indigo in the world at that time. Okay, so now beta, while shading and printing a blue design on a cotton and a jute or a silk cloth, what the Britishers and the Indians weavers were doing, they were taking the help of indigo, and indigo was a plant that were being produced in India, and it was famous in the 18th and in the 19th century in the world wide. Okay, so and with the help of indigo they produce prints of blue shades. Okay, वो नीले कलर के shades यहाँ से indigo plant से निकालते थे. Okay, so now let's read why the demand for the Indian indigo. Now we will read why there was a demand. Okay, the indigo plants grow primarily in the tropics. By the 13th century, Indian indigo was being used by the cloth manufacturers in Italy and the France and Britain to dye cloth. So, however, only small amounts of Indian indigo reached the European market, and its price were very high. European cloth manufacturers therefore had to depend on another plant called wood to make violet and blue dyes. Being a plant of the temperate zone, wood was more easily available in Europe. It was grown in the northern Italy, southern France, and in parts of Germany and Britain. Worried by the competition from indigo and wood producers in Europe, pressurized their governments to ban the import of indigo. Okay, so now you can read that how much indigo was famous in all over the world, and the price of indigo was also high. Okay, and the people they were making dyes of blue color from indigo, and in the European countries it takes very much high time to reach to them, and even the prices of indigo was high. So what they did, they started growing a plant called wood that and with the help of wood they make violet and blue color dyes that were given shades to the clothes. Okay, now clothes dyes, however, preferred indigo as a dye. Indigo produced a rich blue color, whereas the dye from wood was pale and dull. By the 17th century, European clothes producers persuaded their governments to relax the ban on indigo import. The French began cultivating indigo in Saint Domingue in the Caribbean islands, the Portuguese in Brazil, the English in Jamaica, and the Spanish in Venezuela. Indigo plantations also come up in many parts of the North America. So, as in the 17th, 18th, and in the 19th century, the weavers who were involved with the cloth market, they started believing that indigo is really very much helpful and fruitful to them. So what they did, they requested their authorities to bring out indigo from the बैन साइड कि डेट उसके ऊपर कोई भी टैक्स नहीं लगाया जाए, टू रिलीज द इंडिगो फ्रॉम टैक्स. एंड विद द राइज ऑफ टाइम द इंडिगो कल्टिवेशन वाज प्रैक्टिस्ड इन मैनी all other nations. For example, the French people also started in Saint Domingue in the Caribbean islands, the Portuguese in the Brazil, the English in Jamaica, and the Spanish in Venezuela. Indigo plantations also come up in many parts of the North India. North America. By the end of the 18th century, the demand for the Indian indigo grew further. Britain began to industrialize and its cotton production expanded dramatically, creating an enormous new demand for cloth dyes. While the demand for indigo increased, its existing supplies from the West Indies and America collapsed for a variety of reasons. Between 1783 and 1789, the production of indigo in the world fell by half. Cloth dyers in Britain now desperately looked for a new source of indigo supply. From where could this indigo be procured? Okay, so now beta, in the end of the 18th century, like 1783 to 1800, what the people thought, or what the people of who are involved with the cloth market, what they thought, that the indigo was really very much expensive, and it is very much expanded dramatically with the cotton and jute industrialization now. So while the demand of for indigo increased, its existing supplies from the West Indies and America collapsed for a variety of reasons. जैसे ही उसकी सप्लाई आगे बढ़ती थी बेटा, सॉरी उसकी डिमांड बढ़ती थी, डिमांड बढ़ने से अमेरिका में और वेस्ट इंडीज़ के नेशंस में उसकी सप्लाई रुक जाती थी. पता नहीं क्या कारण रहे होंगे कि उसकी सप्लाई रुक जाती थी, एंड दिस कोज्ड अ सीरियस अफेक्ट टू दी clothes. ओके, नाउ क्लोथ्स ड्रायर्स इन ब्रिटेन इंडिगो इन द वर्ल्ड फेल बाय हाफ. और जो कि प्रोडक्शन थी क्लोथ्स की, स्पेशल डिज़ाइंस की जो इंडिगो से बनाए जाते थे, वो आधे से ज़्यादा परसेंटेज में गिर गए थे, मतलब वो कपड़ा ख़राब हो गया था. क्लोथ डायर्स इन ब्रिटेन आर डेस्परेटली लुक फॉर न्यू सोर्सेज ऑफ इंडिगो अप्लाई. और जो क्लोथ डायर्स थे, जो डाइज बनाते थे इंडिगो प्लांट से ब्लू शेड की, वो बहुत ही ज़्यादा इसमें थे कि भाई कब हमें इंडिगो प्लांट मिलेगा और हम फिर से डाई करना शुरू करेंगे. ओके, सो नाउ दिस वाज ऑल अबाउट द इंडिगो, एंड इन द नेक्स्ट वीडियो वी विल read about Britain turns to India for indigo and for cultivation and for cloth. Okay, thank you. I hope you like the video. Thank you.